This Future Cities Africa episode is with Dr. Botshabelo Maja, Deputy Director General of the National School of Government in South Africa. In this episode, we navigate the complex landscape of compliance and innovation in the public sector. Dr. Maja, welcome. It's lovely to have you on the show. What do you believe are the major challenges facing public servants in complying with legislation, regulations, and systems, while also exercising proper discretion and innovation in solving routine and complex delivery problems at a local government level?
I think the biggest task that we have is to be able to put and appoint and promote people onto posts who are not only qualified but also are able to do and execute the tasks that they are given. The biggest problem that I believe we have in South Africa is that we have too many people who sit in positions and are expected to do things they've never done before in their lives. Part of the problem, of course, is that we are not very diligent when we check, when we verify people's qualifications, people's experiences, and people's knowledge. But also, secondly, South Africans believe too much in the quick and dirty, in quick fixes, in hit and run. And our biggest problem is that many of us sit in positions that in other countries require you to have 20 years or so experience of having done that job. But we expect to sit and do a job with 1 year experience, with 1 year knowledge. And then we are surprised when we have a government that is struggling to execute, that is struggling to do. You cannot do that which you have never done. So I think that is the biggest problem that is facing our society. I mean, you look at ESCOM. Let's use ESCOM as an example. I mean, what can be so complex about running a power station? This is first industrial revolution technology. This technology was developed hundreds of years ago. It can only be that people that we have who are appointed into positions of running ESCOM have never in their lives maintained a power station, and yet we expect them to maintain a power station. So that's the biggest problem. And I think when we talk about professionalizing the public sector, this is the nub of the problem we're trying to deal with. How can we be able to create a public sector of the future in this country, which is comprised of people who are not only properly qualified, but also who have the necessary knowledge and the necessary experience? The fact that I have a teacher's degree does not make me the best teacher in the world. After I get a teacher's degree, there are certain rituals, certain processes that I have to undertake and go through to be able to be recognized as a teacher proper. Even in medicine, you don't just do the reading and the writing of the examinations in medicine and then you go and operate on someone because you now have a medical degree. There are systems and processes. The same with pilots. You don't do a simulator and you get a pilot's license and they give you an Airbus. They say, fly these 400 people to America. There are systems and processes and rituals. They say, but how many hours have you been able to fly? You say, I've been able to fly 200 hours. They say, okay, what size aeroplane? You say, small one. They say, okay, alone or with a co-pilot? You say, with a co-pilot. They say, okay, now you need to fly 200 more with a co-pilot with that small plane before you can come onto this Airbus. And when you come onto this Airbus, you are not coming to fly it. You must sit in the cockpit and watch those who've been flying this Airbus for the next 500 hours. After you've done that, you must then sit next to the main pilot and you become the co-pilot and I don't know, I forgot what the main pilot is called, but the big boy, the big lady that flies the thing. You then listen. He tells you, no, touch that, press this, do this, and then I will take off, and then after, so he only allows you to touch the instruments when it's cruising. He says, oh, now that we're cruising, I need to go to the loo. Just watch out for this. I'm coming back. These things take time. But many of us in this country, we think we can just wake up, we show up with a degree, and then we are given a position, and then we must do it. And you see, the problem then is that this problem, it's from top to bottom. It is from top to bottom. How do we make sure that political principals are appointed into jobs that they know something about? Where else in the world have you seen political principals that have no clue about the job they've been appointed into? I mean, we like to talk about China, and I like to keep to China, so that America is glorified too much. So let's say China. In China, you cannot be a president unless if you've proven that you can run a province, you can run a local government. They will never allow anyone to be the president of China who has never successfully run a municipality or a province, let alone qualifications and experience. They want to know, have you proven yourself successful at running government at local level or at provincial level? That's not the case here. I don't want to talk about what's happening in municipalities now. I mean, look at Johannesburg. I mean, look at the joke that Johannesburg municipality has become. I mean, some of these things we must just call them what they are. I'm sorry, I don't want to make bad examples, but at this rate, we might just as well get a cow that is walking past grazing to go and govern Johannesburg, So maybe let me stop there.
Doctor, thank you. What strategies can be implemented to address these challenges and ensure that public servants are able to balance compliance with innovation and discretion in their work?
I think, and I believe that there's one big mistake we made in 1994. And that one big mistake is that we failed to define properly what being a South African means. We failed to define properly what are the ingredients, what are the characteristics, what are the things that define who a South African is. And I make this example a number of times, and I say, a nation cannot be defined simply by a rainbow, because that's what we did in 1994. We said we are a rainbow nation. If you are a rainbow, that's all. You are about just colors. It's just about colors. The world is bigger than colors. The world is much more complex than colors. We were lazy when we said we are a rainbow nation. So what should we have done? I think we should have defined ourselves properly and decided what is it that will define being a South African. What would you then require to form part of this nation called South African? It is those things, once we've defined them, that will then trigger what we need to do to realize this being a South African. So, for example, let's take the US. They say the US is the land of opportunity. If you show up, you will make it. Every American believes that if they show up, they will make it, that their country is there for those who show up. So that is why many Americans believe in themselves so much. They believe in themselves because their country has told them they need to show up. You look at the Asian economies, you look at China, you look at Singapore, you look at many of the countries in Asia. They have defined very clearly who they are. So for me, I think the solution has to come first with South Africa defining what it means to be a South African. Is it okay to be lazy when you are a South African? Part of us defining who we are will mean whether we accept that we are lazy or we don't accept that we are lazy. Do we accept that we work hard? Part of defining ourselves will mean that we either accept that we work hard or we don't accept that we work hard. What are the things that then we teach our children, ourselves, as South African, in terms of this process of self-definition, of being a South African? So therefore, I think the solution number one in this problem, because if you look at this problem of the public sector and the difficulties that we have in the public sector of not being able to execute, they are not unique in the public sector. They cut across the entirety of our nation. So that's why I'm saying the solution must start with us defining what it means to be a South African. So maybe then let me give you an example. So suppose we say to be South African means you love your country, and to love your country means you utilize its resources to the benefit of everyone. It means you develop yourself to be able to utilize these resources to the benefit of everyone. It means you work hard to make sure that these resources are properly utilized to the benefit of everyone. It means that in the way you work hard, you take care of your family and your children, and you take responsibility for the raising of your own children and for the adults that they become in future, so that you are able to transfer this working hard of utilizing resources, of developing yourselves, that your children can embody the same values, the same principles. So I'm just roughly saying you have a suite like that. Then it means everything we do is about that. And you are either in as a South African or you are out on the basis of the extent to which you embody these principles and values. So it means that if I wake up and I say I want to be CEO of Eskom, but I've never maintained a power station, somebody will then ask, you must be not a South African. For you to think you can be a CEO of Eskom without the knowledge, without the skills, without the experience, you must be a foreigner. Are you sure that you are a South African? So then we call people out. We call people out. We say to a minister, Minister, how did you accept to be appointed as a Minister of Finance when you have never managed any finance in your life anywhere else? You have not even proven that you are capable of managing your own personal finances at home. Yet you have accepted to be appointed as a Minister of Finance. It must be that you are not a South African, because it's un-South African for a person to do what you're doing. And then we go on and on and on and on and on in calling each other out because we would have defined what it means to be a South African. And anything else that falls outside that definition can't be South African. Then we do the same with our children. We do the same with the celebrities that are doing funny things that we see in the media. We do the same thing with all these politicians in Johannesburg that are doing funny things. We call people out because we would have defined what it means to be a South African. So once you have a nation that rallies around a very clear definition of what it means to be part of that nation, because you see, the beauty about defining this thing is that even if you were born in Zimbabwe and you are naturalized as a South African, you will know to be naturalized as a South African, these are the things I have to embody. So even when you tell people, actually, I only came to South Africa 5 years ago, they will say, no, 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 that doesn't make sense. Because the way you carry yourself, the things you're doing are South African. So you look, sound, behave like a South African, even though you were born in Zimbabwe. So I think in as far as coming up with a solution, the solution has to be broader than just the public sector. It has to be a South African solution. These problems that we are trying to solve in the public sector, these are shortcut solutions. You can't change 40-year-old men and women. Anybody who is in the public sector, by the time they become part of the public sector, the damage is already done. There are no 10-year-olds in the public sector. All of those people are adults. We are trying to solve adults. It is not going to work. It is not going to be sustainable. We do it as a stopgap. It's an emergency button, but it's not a permanent solution for the future. So the permanent solution lies in our society as a whole.
Absolutely. What role does training and education play in all of this, ensuring that public servants are equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge?
So I think one of the most important things that we have to teach South Africans and public sector officials included is to be conscious, to be mindful. The biggest problem, in my view, in South Africa is not necessarily that there is a problem with legislation and the implementation of legislation. Most of us who are in the public sector, we are just running of the mill. We're just waking up and sleeping and waking up and sleeping. There is no consciousness. We need to reignite consciousness. Steve Biko in the 70s used to refer to this as black consciousness. You see, you could drive from home to work and arrive safely at work driving yourself without being conscious. Because a great deal of that driving yourself from home to work is habit. You know that you turn right here, you turn left here. These robots usually close for 2 seconds and then you go straight. It's habit. That is why sometimes when you are standing at the robots and the robots are red and the taxi driver next to you decides to cross a red robot, you will see 10 other cars following that taxi driver crossing the robot. Those 10 other cars that are following the taxi driver are not conscious. They are not aware that the robot is still red. They're just doing habit. Because they know that normally when one car starts moving, the robots must be green and we all move and they all move. They're not conscious. When you're conscious, it's a completely different ballgame. You notice small things and you make decisions about how those small things impact or do not impact on you. Many of the things public sector officials say are about compliance. The law says we must do this, the law says we must not do that. Do not exist. It is habit. I will tell you about myself. I've been a public sector official now for more than 15 years. Every time I'm at work and I want to implement or do something at work and I'm told I cannot do it, the first question I always ask is, which law says I cannot do it? Because every time they tell me I can't do things, they say, no, no, the law doesn't allow. So I always ask, which law says I cannot do this? Then they say, no, no, no. PFMA is the biggest culprit. PFMA doesn't allow that. And then I ask them the second question. Can you bring that clause in the PFMA for me to read so that I can be able to conclude that you are correct in your interpretation, that it does not allow me to do these things that I want to do? I can tell you then 99.9% of the time, after that clause has been brought to me and I have read it 3-4 times, it is never true. It is never true that the law does not allow me to do that. In fact, in most of those instances, that 99.9% of the time, I actually become more emboldened that with this clause, I can do this thing much more faster, more effectively, much quicker, with a quicker turnaround. And that is why I'm saying the problem is consciousness. Because we govern by hearsay, we govern by innuendo, we govern by habit. We say, oh, no, 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 no. The PFMA does not allow you to just appoint a company without going on tender. We say that. It's habit. There's no clause in the PFMA that says you cannot appoint a company without going on tender. There's no such clause. So, the biggest thing that we have to do in our training interventions for public sector employees is to see whether we can reignite their consciousness so that people stop to govern by guesswork and habit and innuendo, but that they are conscious. They know that no, this clause says may, it does not say must. Because you see, that one word in that clause makes all the difference. If it was saying must, it means you have no option, but you must. But if it says may, might, then it means you might be able to do this if you follow through these other things in these ways, and then you make sure that these other things are in place and these other conditions are taken care of and these other elements are properly managed. Maybe when it says may, it says, but you see, if you may do it, but you will need concurrence from National Treasury. You see, so it says you may do it, but inform National. So you do it and inform National Treasury. It does not say you must not. It says you may not unless you inform Treasury. So when you're conscious, you see that may. I can tell you, and it's shocking, you know. I have met CFOs who, when I tell them, this thing says may, it does not say must. They've never seen that may. They say, oh, some of them actually say, no, what's the difference? I mean, but the clause says we must not do it. I say, no. There's nowhere in this clause where there's a word called must. They say, yeah, but we can't do it. So I say, no, you are making the law in your head by habit. This law here says may. Why do you keep on saying, I've argued with people. And I say, but why do you say must when this thing says may? So it is that consciousness. And you see, once you unlock, in my personal view, once you unlock that consciousness, then you're entering a completely different space. Now you can talk innovation. Now you can talk not just compliance, because compliance is a very negative term. You are talking now execution, because we don't want people who do compliance. We want people who execute. The law is not there for you to comply. The law is there for you to execute. So we want people who execute. So once that consciousness is open, then you can then say, no, okay, let me write to Treasury and tell them that I'm going to do this. And then I give them 7 days or whatever days that are reasonable, 15 days to come back to me. If they don't come back to me, you see, if they don't come back to me, because there's a good chance that they might never respond to you, then all I need is proof that I informed them. I run. The day this thing becomes an audit query, I will be able to produce proof that I informed them. I can't control whether they respond or not, but I did the may part that say I may inform Treasury, and I did. And that's why I ran with this thing. Until public servants are conscious, then we can be innovative, we can be able to execute, we can be able to implement, we can do things. And only states that do things are successful. Some of the things I see as constraining ourselves with in South Africa compared to other countries are amazing. Now, for example, the world, countries are fighting to become leaders in development of semiconductors. The world is obsessed with semiconductors, microchips. What are we obsessed with here? We're obsessed with electricity. First industrial revolution technology. That's what we're busy with here. So let me stop there.
Doctor, finally, what is your vision for the future of public service delivery in South Africa? And how can we ensure that public servants are able to navigate the complex landscape of compliance and innovation to deliver the best possible outcome for citizens?
Then I think we must also acknowledge, in alcohol, there is this thing, Alcoholics Anonymous. So Alcoholics Anonymous is a place where alcoholics go when they want to stop being alcoholics. So the first thing that they teach, I've seen it in movies and stuff, is that before they can try to help you as an alcoholic who wants to stop being an alcoholic, before they can help you, you must first accept and acknowledge that you are an alcoholic. So you must say, I am an alcoholic. That's why I'm here, and you must accept it. And I think as South African society, the first thing that we must do is to accept certain things. I think we must accept first and foremost that many of us who are adults in the public sector today are a problem that cannot be solved. If you look at the average age in the public sector, it's comprised of old people. Many of those who are in the public sector are 50 and above. Many studied Bantu education, as my son always told me, They are products of Bantu education. Bantu education damaged us big time. A lot of that damage cannot be undone. So what do? We must just make do, right? We must just make do and say, "Ish, this is all that we have. Let's survive this." But the problem I have with many of us is that we think this is it. These people that are so damaged are the only future we have. No, we must never behave as if these old people are the only future we have. We are just making do because it is what it is. We hope to survive the next 5 years, 10 years. What we should be doing is to invest in young people. We should be spending our arms and legs and teeth and ears and everything in our soul to invest in young people. You know, I was reading some statistics from Duma Kubule. Duma Kubule is an economist. He's a South African. He's a statistician, an economist who's also a statistician. I'm neither of those things. But Duma Kubule makes a point in the last quarter of 2022, I think. Recent stats from Statistics South Africa. He says the most jobs that we have created in the public sector have employed old people. The most jobs that have been created in the public sector have further displaced young people out of jobs. So this thing that I'm saying, that we're treating these damaged old people as if they are all we have. It seems Duma Kubule has it in statistics. He has it in numbers. He can explain further those numbers. He gets them from Stats SA. Why are old people displacing young people from jobs when young people are supposed to be our future? We are supposed to be investing in young people. We are doing lip service about it. The stats are saying to us we are doing lip service. So, in responding to your question, the first thing we have to do is to recognize that the only future we have is in young people. And if we fail to invest in that future today, we are doomed. We are finished as a country. And we must not talk about it. These things that I said at the beginning, qualifications, knowledge, experience, practice, young people should be at the center of all of that. Our young people should be complaining that they can't handle this. This is too much. They must do this, they must do this, they must do this, they must do this. They should be saying that. But what are they saying instead? Our young people are saying they have nothing to do. I don't know about you then. In my own family, I can count no less than 5 young people who are graduates, university graduates, who are sitting at home doing nothing for the last 3 to 4 years. University, in fact, one of them actually left for the US last year. She's now 29. She said, no, this is too much. She left. She's a domestic worker. Yeah, I'm telling you, she's a domestic worker in the US with a degree. It's criminal. I'm sorry. We must do the Alcoholics Anonymous thing and say we have a crime in this country. There's no future without young people, and we must not talk it, we must do it. So the public sector of the future in this country can only be built on the backbone of investing in young people. Proper investment in young people. They shouldn't be sleeping. They should be doing internships there. They should be doing learnerships there. They should be farming there. Building houses there. Young people should be all over those power stations at Eskom and saying, what's this? They should be doing the semiconductors. We talk, fourth industrial revolution. No, our young people should be in factories. Where are those factories? Where? Show me one factory that is full of young people, flooded with young people. Nowhere. You won't find it. We are talking. So we can only build on the backbone of young people. Us, 50 plus, it must just be to make do so that we can pass through the next 5 years, next 10 years, hopefully. And then these young people that we are busy with full time take over.
A big thank you to Dr. Botshabelo Maja from the National School of Government in South Africa for this insightful conversation on Future Cities Africa.